everybody, Mark from the Geek Church. It's been a while since I've done a 10-minute rant, so last weekend I saw the film The Wild Robot. If you haven't seen this film, go see it. This is probably one of the best films this year. Now, is it worthy of an Oscar? I think it is. In fact, I think that it should win the Best Picture Oscar from what I've seen so far. There's been a few good films I like, but honestly, I don't really see that many films. Furiosa might be able to get there an Oscar nod. I don't know. But honestly, The Wild Robot probably will win an Oscar. It'll win an Oscar for Best Animated Film, because the animation in this film is very beautiful. Like a lot of films that have come out these days, like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, also done by DreamWorks, it's got these computer-generated look to it, but they often put this coat of paint on it, so it almost looks very, I hesitate to say the word lifelike, but more like painting-like. So, for example, in The Wild Robot, which emphasizes nature, a lot of the backgrounds have this very painting-like look to them, which I like a whole bunch. Now, the premise of this film, and I'm going to be getting into some spoiler territory here, is that in some future time, an accident causes a few crates of robots to dump on a deserted island. Now you might think, like, in the future, would there be any deserted islands? And the answer to this movie is yes, but not for the reasons you might think. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. So this robot is activated by a family of otters, just completely, who are just going through the crates, and right from the get-go, this film starts like right from the get-go. It allows no time to, a very little time to breathe at the very beginning. It's like crash, robot gets activated, and then starts meandering around and then learning. So this robot basically goes through this woods. It conserves its power. While it's conserving its power, it's analyzing the language of the animals around it. So the robot can actually speak to them, and we actually hear the animals. And by the time the animals start talking, this is where we realize that we're seeing it from the robot's point of view. Because the animals don't talk until the robot learns the language, which I thought was a really good use of that. This is a film that relies a lot on showing and not telling, which I like a lot. This film feels a little bit like WALL-E meets Castaway, for lack of a better term. Because you got that deserted island aspect, and you got a robot going around with very little dialogue. Here's the issue. This film could have tanked when the robot starts talking with the animals, because then it gets kind of cutesy-wootsy and stuff like that, and that's where you think it's going to go. The thing I love about this movie is it does not hold back from showing nature being a very violent thing that sometimes does not respect the small creature and will crush it. And there's actually a really great scene where this possum has is talking about this possum mother is saying, like, I have 7 babies. And you hear outside the frame, and then she just goes 6 babies, and you can kind of see that she doesn't really care that her baby has just been killed. And it turns out the baby wasn't killed because this is a PG-13 or a PG film. But honestly, I thought they were doing that, and I went like, oh my gosh, did they just do that? And it's like, so anyway, is this a kids film? I think it's a film that kids will enjoy. This feels like something that Pixar would do. And because of that, I feel like this film is superior in many ways. Now, I'm going to get to a little bit of a thing as far as like the whole aspect of the plot of this film really happens when the wild robot finds a goose egg, and when the goose hatches, it imprints on the first things it sees. So guess what? Yeah, robot, which is named Roz, or at least it names itself that, because that's the company that made it. That's a bit nod to a play that introduced the word robot, by the way, in case you didn't see that. Um, so yeah, basically this robot who the decides to name this kid Bright Bill has to raise this thing, and then this robot also has this companion fox, and the fox just wants to eat the goose, but the robot is keeping the fox away. The fox is voiced by Pedro Pascal, who has been in like everything, hasn't he? It's crazy that he found time in between takes of The Mandalorian to do this. But hey, talk about Star Wars alumni. There's a lot of people who were in Star Wars movies that were doing the voice of this in this film, but I'll get to that. So the issue with this thing is that there's this wonderful scene where essentially this robot realizes that, hey, I've got to raise this thing. I've got to give it shelter. I've got to teach it to swim, and I got to teach it to fly. This film will pull on your heartstrings because the robot and the goose have this great and amazing relationship that is done really well. Now, of course, this leads to scenes where, of course, I think we all know where this is going. The goose has to fly. Now, when the goose starts flying away, I actually thought the film was going to become a different film after that. But it doesn't, because I thought, oh, this is going to be like in WALL-E, where WALL-E goes into the space station and then it becomes a different film altogether. There are some people that think like, oh, that's when the film just tapers off and dies, and then some people who, like me, think in WALL-E, when WALL-E gets to the space station, the film becomes elevated. The Wild Robot doesn't give you a lot of time to show what the world outside the island is like, and I think that is smart. I actually think there's a lot you could do with that. And it's very obvious, and this is where I'm kind of getting into spoiler territory, why there is a deserted island in this future world that is full of robots. We are seeing in this world, there's a quick shot of what appears to be the Golden Gate Bridge, but it is very much underwater at a certain point. And we see whales kind of swim over essentially where the cars would drive in the Golden Gate Bridge. There are several cities that you can see are underwater almost entirely. Only the highest buildings are actually peeking out. In other words, polar caps have melted. And I get the feeling that whatever new world order has come to pass, they are very much dependent on robots helping them. We see very few humans in this particular world. However, this book, The Wild Robot, is based on a book series by Peter Brown, and I actually believe that there are other books in the series that go into more detail on this. And if so, I actually heard that they've greenlit a sequel to The Wild Robot from DreamWorks, and I look forward to seeing it. DreamWorks has had some tough times these days because not a lot of their films have been hits, and I think they filed for bankruptcy twice, maybe? Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure they're going to make Shrek 5 and make some more money, or the opposite could happen, kind of like what Disney had with Indiana Jones last summer. But this film is just is spectacularly amazing, and I think once this film really starts get going, it does get going. And this film is one of those where the story keeps going and it is never dull. And even though there's a lot of stuff with going on with like in the forest and all these animals working together, it's very cool. And I feel like this is a story that has been told before, but I don't know if The Wild Robot is doing a twist on it or something like that. But it just works. I mean, what can I say? Yeah, I'm going to highly recommend this one, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the sequel. Let's see, I mentioned something about voice actors here. Not only do they have Pedro Pascal, I forget the name of the actress that plays the robot in it, but as a Star Wars alumni, and I think has also been in Black Panther. Mark Hamill plays a role of a bear in this film, which is really interesting. Ving Rhames is in this. He plays the voice of a hawk. And there are scenes in this film with flying and stuff like that. And just when you thought How to Train Your Dragon had the best flying scenes, you did not see the best flying scenes until you've seen The Wild Robot, because they are great. Anyway, this is one great film. You should go out and see it, and take your friends to see it, take your kids to see it. It is awesome.